very appropriate size crate for her.
It is. It's a very good size crate for her. All right. Hi guys, it's Katie. So we're going to be talking about crating. So frequently I have a lot of clients who attempt to crate and the dog pitches a fit or won't go in the crate or any number of things. So the idea behind crating to make it the most valuable behavior that you can is making sure that one, your dog knows how to get into the crate, and that your dog knows when they're allowed to come out of their crate. So rule number one is that if the dog is not relatively calm, they can't come out. So if they're throwing a fit, if they're carrying on, barking, scratching, whining, any of that stuff, I'm not gonna open the door. The second thing is the dog needs to know a release command. So if you have not already touched on a release command with stay and your thresholds, you're going to want to pick a release command for all of those essentially. I use the same one for all of them just to make it a little bit easier and so that the dog understands what the expectation is. Now with this kennel, we've already checked to see if Lyra would go in it for another video, and she did not want to because this isn't her normal kennel. So I'll kind of show you how I would get a dog to go into a kennel that they might not be comfortable with, or they don't assume that that's what they're supposed to be doing. Now, for some dogs, you might need to do things like acclimatization, where there's no expectation that the kennel is always going to be closed. So for some dogs, you might do all of their meal times in the kennel. You might put water in the kennel so that there's a survival-based reason to go into the kennel. This is especially useful for young puppies. In Lyra's case, I wouldn't be doing that because if I need to get her into this kennel now, I'm not going to have time to acclimatize her to it. So I may have to use pressure. I don't always use treats for going in the kennel because if you've got a dog that's too stressed to go into the kennel, they won't be willing to take the food in the first place. So what I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to go ahead and open this kennel. Lyra. So I use the command kennel. You can use crate, you can use load up. The idea is that you need a command that lets the dog know they're supposed to go in. So I'm going to take the dog's leash and I'm just going to put some tension. Lyra, kennel. So you can see she wants to jump up on it. Lyra, go on. So in her case, I am going to use food because she's convinced she's supposed to jump up on the kennel. Yeah, you can get food. You can. Where did I stick the cheese at? This one. All right. Kennel. So all I'm doing is I'm just putting the cheese in. I'm not giving it to her yet. I'm not throwing it in because I need her to try and do more than just follow the cheese. She's like, I am refusing to do all of this right now. Good. So notice how that time when I paired the tension with the cheese, she was willing to get in. Now, you'll notice here she is not coming out of the kennel. So she's been previously trained to a release command, so she knows she's not supposed to come out without it released. So it is important to establish that that release command applies at all times. Kennel. Good. So that time I didn't need the tension. Good. Released. And so this time I'm going to try without tension or without cheese. Kennel. Good. So you'll notice she goes right in and she's perfectly comfortable. Now, once the dog is capable of going in and they understand there's a release command, that's when you can add in closing the door. So closing the door is going to cause the dog to potentially panic. Lyra is already crate trained, so she is generally not going to panic in a crate. The only time she might is if it was getting moved around or things like that, where she shouldn't be in it in the first place. But the idea is once I close this door, good girl, a lot of dogs will start to panic. So initially, if the dog starts panicking, I'm going to wait for that half second of composure where they stop before I start to open the door. Now notice, just because this door is open doesn't mean the dog comes out. So that is a necessity to train in, partly because if you have a dog who always rushes thresholds and the crate falls in line with a threshold, you have a dog who is potentially going to impulsively burst through a threshold with no repercussion for what's going on the other side of the threshold. So in her case, if I have her in our vehicle, if I park on a busy road, I don't want her bursting out of her kennel when I open the door. So I want her to wait until she has been released from the kennel. Released. Good girl. So you'll notice the expectation is always going to be that the dog waits until released. Now she's just waiting to be told to go back in. But as you can see, the idea is that we're trying to get the dog to understand that they stay until released.
That'd be fun.
Lyra, kennel.